Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Shared Value Leadership Summit 2015, Business at its Best. Please kindly make your way to your seats as the presentations are about to begin.
I like that part of having somebody quiet the crowd for me. I appreciate that. So good morning. Good morning and welcome to the 2015 Shared Value Leadership Summit. On behalf of Michael Porter, Mark Kramer, the entire Shared Value Initiative team, and FSG, I'm pleased to welcome you to this, our 5th annual Shared Value Summit. My name is Justin Bakule. I'm the Executive Director of the Shared Value Initiative, and I get to play tour guide and host over the next 2 days of intriguing conversations, working session and labs over both days around this critical topic of creating shared value. You know, I was getting on the plane on Sunday night. Like many of you, I spend a lot of time traveling, and the flight attendant was running through the normal announcements. I've heard them so many times that I really don't hear them at all. And yet on Sunday night, she said something that I took note of. She said, "If you're going to New York, you're in the right place." You're in the right place. I liked that. I thought that was exactly the right kind of imagery and sentiment for a gathering of this type, of leaders committed to shared value in the right place. So I wanted to take a moment today in opening and talk to you about my own personal journey to shared value and how I knew I was in the right place, working with businesses, nonprofits, and governments to create scalable social and business value. My own personal journey started about 11 years ago in Gao, Mali. I think I basically still look like that, which is a good thing. We lived in northern Mali. Gao is a regional capital on the edge of the Sahara Desert. It's home to about 40,000 people. It's one of the most challenging environments in the world. You can imagine that periodically camel caravans still emanate from the Sahara Desert, laden with salt, mined from Saharan salt mines. There it is. They still sell it in the market, just like that, pulled from the Sahara. As you can imagine, a place like Gao, Mali is confronted with every imaginable, intractable social problem you might be able to think of. And you'd also suspect that it's not the kind of place where you would find business innovation. It's one of the most challenging environments in the world. Now, my wife worked for a local health center, and together we got involved in a program to vaccinate children against polio. For it is one of the few places in the world where polio, a crippling disease, is still endemic. When the program started, we went to the local health center. All the volunteers gathered around and they spread out maps of this town of 40,000 people to segment the different neighborhoods we would go to vaccinate these children. And we were given just 3 simple tools for this task: an indelible marker, a piece of chalk, and polio vaccines. Now, when we would go to the homes, we would enter the compound and we would explain to the parents the reason for our visit. They would gather all the children together. Some of the children, I think, were intrigued by what we were doing and would take the vaccine quickly, thinking in French, as they say, that it was a bonbon. But others, well, let's just say, you know, kids everywhere around the world are sometimes afraid of medicines. Once we would vaccinate the children with the oral vaccine, we would take the marker and we would color in their pinky fingernail. We would take the chalk, and on the outer door of the compound, we would make a cross. And in one quadrant of the cross, we would write the number of children who lived there, and in the other quadrant, the number who had received the vaccine that day. So that a returning vaccination team, by checking pinky fingernails and the notation on the door, could understand how many kids there had received the vaccine and how many were still left to be vaccinated. What a simple, evocative story of a global health challenge that we can all understand and feel very viscerally. And yet, when you start to unpack it, you realize and start to look at the contours of complexity that exist within a situation like this. From the communities themselves, the local religious leaders, the parents who needed to be supportive of their kids receiving this vaccine, to the local NGOs, global advocacy organizations that needed to make sure that polio, which in places of the world like in New York City has been gone for decades, stayed on a global health agenda. To the regional, local, national governments, global organizations that needed to do the same thing and provide a supportive policy framework for all this activity to take place. Right down to the companies who needed to develop innovations in cold chain storage, single-use dosage, how to keep it all hygienic, and to make that vaccine oral to deliver in a low-resource setting. It was at this point in my own journey that I knew I was in the right place. And there were two elements that I saw in my own personal story that I see for all of you that are so evocative of shared value. First, the role of the private sector to innovate in ways that create social and business value, even in a place like this, where you again would maybe not consider or think that business innovation could be at work. And secondly, in almost every example we see, it is not about business acting alone, but in concert with nonprofits, with governments, with the communities themselves to address these intractable social problems. So my story, of course, for those of you who work in global health, and many of you in the room do, you know that this story is not yet finished. Polio is still endemic. Still, people suffer from it in different parts of the world. But every story needs a good ending. So where is my good ending in this story? Well, for me, my ending is the people in this room. It's all of you. Because it's the people in this room that hold the power to innovate in ways that address these social challenges that we face today. It's the people in this room who are in a position to challenge long-held conventions about what the role of the private sector should be and how it should act in concert with governments and nonprofits. If you think about my role for a moment, in the initiative, we provide a vessel for events like this to happen. We find all the latest research. We try to inspire people to see this way of thinking. But when it comes to walking into that corporate headquarters or into your office and swiping that ID card, that's all of you. And when you're thinking about structuring a new partnership, that's all of you. And I am continually amazed at the courage it takes to do this. And I choose that word courage quite carefully because it does take courage to fight against the long-held conventional views of how the sectors are supposed to act. So as you come back to that scene of me sitting on the plane and thinking about all of this, and you think about your next 2 days and what you want to accomplish here, and the connections you want to make, the partnerships you want to launch, I ask you, are you in the right place? And I hope for you, as it is for me, that the answer is an emphatic yes. Now, I have the good fortune this morning of also announcing a new initiative that we're undertaking. We've been at this work for about 4 years through the Shared Value Initiative. And we believe that this is the right moment to put a stake in the ground and look at the progress in the field of shared value. One part, where have we been? One part, where are we going? We're calling this effort Global Trends in Shared Value, and it will be a dedicated campaign launching this fall to understand progress in this field. Why is this the right moment? Well, I think, as is evidenced by this room and all of you and the committed practitioners we see in all corners of the globe, that there has been tremendous awareness and adoption and activation on shared value. But yet we've never really had a way to put a stake in the ground and know how far we've come. And more importantly, to create a joint learning agenda to understand the places where we need to catalyze greater action, where we need to unblock the existing barriers to progress. Now, as it turns out, we're going to start that data collection process here today and over the next 2 days. I'm particularly excited over the next 2 days for the lab sessions. We've redesigned this from prior summits, and what you will find is these lab sessions are action-oriented, all with an idea of generating specific outputs in certain social issues, in ways that your organizations are managed, all leading into this effort around global trends and shared value. But in addition, we're going to do some polls, and we'll do the first poll right now. So we're using a system called, as you see on the screen, called pigeonhole.at. And so I encourage you all to bring out whatever device you have and launch your browser. I know we have a good number of technology firms in the room, so I brought up my iPhone 4S to give everybody clearance that if you're not up to date on technology, that's okay. And if you launch your browser and go to pigeonhole.at, for those of you who are into web domains, .at is the web domain for Austria, okay? So we're all touching into Austria here. And you can go into pigeonhole.at and you'll see the first poll question. And I'll do this with you. So May 12th, poll question 1. Your shared value experience. Which statement best describes how you use shared value in your work today? And I see a number of you have already answered, and thank you. I would also point out that over the next few days, all of the questions that the speakers will take in plenary will come to them through this interface. So as you're listening to Professor Porter, Elizabeth Littlefield, and Hikmet here in the opening segment, and you have a question for them, find that session on the interface and submit the question. As you go in, you will be able to see the questions that others have submitted, and if you like that question, you can vote on it, which will bring it to the top. We are also live streaming, and anyone who's joining us via live stream, thank you. And second of all, you can also vote using this same system. I also encourage you to use over the next few days our Twitter handle, #SVLeaders. And as a little incentive to tweet about our event, I will say that I'm going to open tomorrow's second day of the summit by picking my 5 favorite tweets and what they tell us about our community and our work and going through them. So it's a good competitive instinct for why you should tweet about what you're hearing and learning today. Over the next 2 days, I also want to acknowledge a number of different supporters and partners of the initiative and important organizations in our work. And I wanted to start today by acknowledging the Shared Value Initiative Leadership Council. These are not only the organizations that are leading the way in shared value knowledge and practice, but importantly, are committed to sharing what they're learning to help advance the field of shared value. A big commitment that they've made to continue to see progress in this important field. And all of them also provide us strategic input and guidance on shared value.